And Chris Krebs joins us now, his first live interview since being fired as director of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, known as CISA. Mr. Krebs, good morning to you. Unfortunately, we have to start right there. The reaction to your speaking out, particularly one of the president's own lawyers suggesting you should be executed. It is obviously disturbing and outrageous. How concerned are you about comments like that?
You know, it's certainly more dangerous language, more dangerous behavior. And the way I look at it is that we're a nation of laws, and I plan to take advantage of those laws. I've got an exceptional team of lawyers that win in court, and I think they're probably going to be busy.
You feel like there's legal action that might arise from comments like that?
We're taking a look at all our available opportunities.
Are you worried about your safety, sir? This is not the first death threat, unfortunately.
You know, I'm not going to give them the benefit of knowing how I'm reacting to this. They can know that there are things coming, though.
Let's talk about this election news that took place overnight. Arizona officially certifying its election results. The president immediately lashing out at the Republican governor, Doug Ducey, who is a supporter of the president, essentially accusing him of a betrayal. Is there any reason to doubt the election result in Arizona?
So Secretary Hobbs, the Secretary of State in Arizona, was a great partner of ours as we were working to support states in securing their systems. And based on what we understand, based on the checks, the controls, the security measures in place at all points throughout the election, from registration through certification, we've got a lot of confidence in the security, not just of the Arizona results, but throughout the country.
And I want to ask you about that. Of course, you were in charge of the cybersecurity effort. You worked for years on this. 9 days after the election, your office put out a statement stating that the November 3rd election was the most secure election in U.S. history. Since then, the Trump campaign has filed lawsuits, raised allegations of nefarious algorithms, votes being flipped, widespread fraud. Has anything that's been raised or surfaced by the Trump campaign or any Trump supporter made you question the integrity of the election or the conclusion you reached?
Well, the first thing is that statement that was issued on November 12th was not just my agency, CISA. It was a community of everyone involved in the elections, from state and local election officials, other federal agencies, in fact, the vendors that support elections. And that was a community assessment. And I am yet to see anything based in reality that would change my opinion. Now, there's certainly opportunities going forward where they can prove a case. But again, you know, based on the controls that are in place across the system, we have confidence that this was a secure election. It is important, though, to distinguish between the security of the systems and the ability to resist foreign interference and foreign tampering and machine algorithms and fraud. And fraud is a criminal act that will be dealt with and investigated by the appropriate law enforcement entities.
Yeah, and there have been allegations and lawsuits. None has been successful to date. They can continue if there's merit to them. You know, in a survey out Monday, only about 20% of Republicans said they considered the Biden victory to be the true result. You know, there is a lot of misinformation out there, and there are people of good faith who are hearing that misinformation. So I'm asking you, sir, in a way to show your work. How do you know? How do you know this election was secure?
It's kind of a keep it simple, stupid approach. Paper ballots. 90 to 95% of votes cast in the 2020 election had a voter verifiable paper audit trail. And that means that the voter's intent is registered on the paper. The voter can check that. And then regardless of what happens next, in the subsequent canvass, audit, and recount process, if there is some sort of machine that's compromised, there's subsequent checks, including like what we just saw in Georgia with a hand recount of every ballot, and the outcome was consistent. So again, the ability to go back, you effectively have the receipts, and you can check the outcomes.
Let's talk about what happened to you. As mentioned, your office, this community statement of many officials stating that the election was secure happened. But then the president tweeted about it. He singled you out and he fired you in a tweet. When you signed on to that statement, when you stuck your neck out and said this was a secure election, did you think, I'm probably going to get fired?
I honestly, I'm not sure necessarily crossed my mind. What we adopted, the approach that we took from the beginning in terms of securing the 2020 election was a nonpartisan approach. And effectively what that means is, regardless of who you are, where you are, country over party. And we're seeing that play out in secretaries of state across the country, whether they're Democrat or Republican, country over party. And so that statement was important to put out, again, by a community involved in the election security and the election administration space, to reinforce confidence from the people that actually administered the election and were involved in the election, to, again, reinforce confidence in the American people that we were actively seeing undermined.
You know, I have to ask you, because there will be some who are watching this and saying, oh, there it is. There's the deep state. There's a bureaucrat. There's somebody who's working behind the scenes to undermine the president. What do you say to that? And frankly, you worked for the Bush administration. You were appointed by the Trump administration, by President Trump. Are you a supporter of his?
I'm a lifelong Republican. I've served, as you pointed out, in 2 Republican administrations. I served with honor in the Trump administration, and I will always be thankful to President Trump for the opportunity to lead the, as we call them, the citizens of CISA. It's a little cheesy, but you know, that's an honor of a career, and I will always be thankful for that. But again, when you enter federal service, you pledge an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution from threats, foreign and domestic, country over party. That's what we did. We approached it in a nonpartisan way, and we did it right.
Do you consider this election misinformation that's being propagated from the highest levels of our government to be a domestic threat, to use your terminology?
Again, we took a nonpartisan approach, regardless of where the information came from, the themes that were emerging that were ultimately corrosive to confidence in the process. We felt that it was important to get facts out on how elections work and the controls, the security measures in place, and ultimately, again, the importance, the value of paper ballots. And we need to invest more in our nation's elections to uphold and restore that confidence.
Last thing, I just have a few seconds left. The president, as mentioned, has gone after Arizona's Republican governor against the Republican Secretary of State of Georgia, who is a Trump supporter, and said he donated to the Trump campaign. Are you surprised that more Republicans, and particularly Republicans in Congress, haven't stood up, spoken out on behalf of the integrity of our election?
Well, I've certainly heard from a number of them, a number of supporters. I think we had a really successful run at CISA. I did when I was there in terms of bipartisan support for our nonpartisan efforts. I do wish that we could hear a little bit more to the congressional representatives, that they can reach out and engage their constituents and let them know that the election was secure.
Well, Christopher Krebs, thank you for your service. Thank you for your time this morning. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.